workshop. We're getting back on the Ford Ranger build. What we're going to be focusing on today is getting a chassis mounted underneath this body. And we're going to get that chassis into there so we can get a placement for the bumpers front and rear. Now, I don't have the actual chassis that the customer is going to be using for this, but it's just an SCX-102. So I'll be able to take one of the few chassis I have laying around and do a mock-up. And when I'm done with this, I'll have bumpers that will bolt on to a known SCX-102 chassis, and I can send it all off and I'll know that it'll fit and it'll be right. So let's get started. So the body mounts turned out great. In the back, I'm using Velcro, and that's just going straight to the bed, and there's just a piece of plastic that is screwed into this brace. The front is a thin piece of hard, it's like a rigid plastic. I'm not even sure what type it is. And what I've done is I've cut a notch behind the grill into this structure. So what happens is that pop the Velcro loose in the back and the front will come out. So when you want to put the thing in, see, you have this little notch goes in here, and then you push it straight down into the Velcro, and that'll lock the truck in and give it a nice good solid body mount. Now this won't be the final mount. I just used this as a to mock this up. And it's obviously not the final chassis either. There's a aftermarket piece that the customer has, and this I'll just send him a hard piece of plastic cut into relative shape, and he can then mark and drill the holes to mount the a piece in, and then that'll essentially do the same thing. It will just be a different mount down here. So now that I have the placement of this chassis rails with the body, I'll be able to go in and take measurements for running a rear bumper and a front bumper. All right, let's get to that. The front bumper is pretty well finished up. I still have to put a hoop, and there's some bracing on the side that has to be put in, but all in all, it's done. So what I've used is some 1/2 inch carbon steel and notched that into the tube, and then it's going to be mounted into 2 screw holes that will go into the front bumper support. And so that's a good solid mount. Now what I need to do next is extend these rails back and then jog them up and come back a little bit. And so what you'll end up having is, you know, the similar carbon steel 1/2 inch piece sticking out, and then a tube bumper that is close to flush to here, and you know, just down a little bit from the tailgate, which is pretty much where they would be from the stock. So just need to get to that. So let's get started. So now I'm going to work on getting the hood to be hinged. I have most of the detail on the hood finished up. As with the rest of the truck, there's still a lot of little minor finish details I need to work on, but overall it's in the right shape. So I'm going to come up with some type of an understructure and some type of a hinge. The best I remember, the hinge is very simple, so hopefully I can make something to make this thing hinged up fairly easily. Alright, so let's get to that. So I finally have the hood hinges finished. They were really difficult to get done. The actual work of making them was not difficult. It's just the understanding of the geometry and how these work. I have a much better idea how that works now, so any future hinges will be a lot easier to get set up. So what it is just 2 pieces of thin aluminum that are then bolted onto another piece that's a bracket that's mounted back. Now I still have a lot of filling to do in here to get this cleaned up some. I also have I got to build out the front a little bit to get it lined up with the hood, but all in all it works really well. The other thing is it sags just a little bit and catches in the middle. So what I plan on doing is creating a thicker rib that's shaped to this and not bent, and that way I can glue it in here and it'll hold it up. And I mean, it just needs to come up maybe like a 1/2 millimeter to not catch, but if you open it up and just give it a little bit of a push on the inside, that's all it takes to get open. So So very happy with how that's turned out. Also have finished up the bumpers. I've just thrown a quick coat of black paint on just to kind of give it a good look, but I'll let him finish up whatever paint he wants on that. The rear is just a simple tube. The front was a tube with a little bit of a hoop on top. They're mounted solidly to the chassis, and then the chassis is then mounted with a Velcro tab in the rear and a tab that inserts into the support in the front and makes it a real nice solid mount. So very happy with how this is turning out. I think it's gonna work really well. Looking forward to finishing this thing up and getting really close. From this point on, it's mostly details, but looking forward to that. But until then, we'll see you on the rocks.